how does the study of philosophy helps building great AI? I mean, what's the overlap? What's the connection? Is it morality? Is it ethics? Is it cognitively more understanding of the environment around you? So what is it?
It's a very good question, actually, because I believe studying philosophy has actually helped me quite significantly with my AI design. And starting with epistemology, I mean, that's one of the foundations of philosophy is epistemology, a theory of knowledge. How do we know anything? You know, what is reality? That's even going back further on metaphysics or on ontology. You know, what is the relationship between us knowing stuff and the stuff that's to be known? You know, the reality and knowledge. How do we know anything? How do we acquire knowledge? What is certainty? Can we be certain of things? What does that mean? So understanding a theory of knowledge and in humans what concepts are, how we form concepts, the importance of concepts, that a lot of that is, you know, can or should be studied in epistemology and in philosophy. So I learned a lot about how we need to build a system by understanding what knowledge is and how we acquire knowledge. Then also there was always the puzzle I had for many years of what free will is or where free will fits in. And again, I've written some articles on that. I wrote an article many years ago after I spent about 6 months on just focusing on that and that research. It's quite a long article where I argue that we do have free will, but determinism is also true. Yeah. So it's basically a position called compatibilism. So they are compatible. And that's sort of the way I used to explain it. But then over the years, I've come across so many people who basically just say there is no free will. And, you know, their starting point is there is no free will, you know, and more recently, a few years ago, I wrote another article that we don't have free will, we have something better. So you can look at it, and really what it boils down to, even my first article, it depends on your definition of free will. It depends on your definition of free will, and it depends on your definition of determinism. So if you don't agree with my definition of free will in my first article, then you'd be better off reading the second one. You say, okay, let's agree we don't have free will. But what is it that we have that people think is free will? And that's what I cover in the second article. So they're not really contradictory. It's just depending on what definition you're comfortable with in terms of what free will is. So if you say, well, there is no free will, can't be, you know, then the second article we have something that people call free will or are confused by it and think it's free will, but it's really better than free will.
Right. But it still cannot be an absolute, like you cannot define a free will in an absolute term because it's, like you said, it's perspective, how you perceive it.
Oh, no. It's objective.
Is it absolute?
Yeah, it's objective. It's absolute. It's just, you know, the way we use words, the meaning we attach to a word can be very different. You know, one person may say that free will is basically, you know, acausal decisions that have no antecedent causes. Now, if that's the definition you have of it, then I would say no, that doesn't exist because everything has antecedent causes. And so that would be kind of the argument. But then there are other people who say free will is more to do with the responsibility we take for our actions or responsibility, because why do we even need the concept of free will? Where did it come from? It really came from, are you responsible for an action you took? Should you take responsibility for it? If we don't have free will at all, you know, in that sense, then how can anybody be responsible for what they do? And nobody could ever take responsibility for what they do because, you know, and that's kind of an absurd position to take. You know, clearly we do say that people are responsible for their actions. We might make all sorts of excuses and say, you know, childhood this, or they were hungry or whatever, you know, but those are factors that come into it. But then at some point they made a decision to do this or to do that, you know. So anyway, that I explore that in quite a bit of detail in the two articles that I have. So yes we whether we have free will or not depends on your definition of free will, but we have something that allows us, or that really makes us responsible for our actions. And an AI will have that same capability.
Right, right.